for tonight, we shall be talking about reflecting on the titles of Saint Joseph. I will skip this slide because this has been mentioned by Brother Jerome. Just a quick background. I know some of you already know the context of what we are doing. This year is a special year of Saint Joseph proclaimed by Pope Francis. This special year runs from December 8th of last year and will end December 8th of this year. Well, the declaration of the Pope was actually as a way to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the proclamation of Saint Joseph as patron of the Universal Church. So in 1870, by a papal decree entitled Quod Deus, Pius IX proclaimed Saint Joseph as patron of the Universal Church. And it was on December 8th. So that's why Pope Francis declared December 8th of last year until December 8th of this year a special year of Saint Joseph. And since the proclamation of this year as Year of Saint Joseph, many groups, parishes are having this consecration to Saint Joseph. And as a guide, they are using the book of Father Donald Calloway, an American priest. I think this is also a requirement to those who are joining this group, okay, to have the book Consecration to Saint Joseph. For tonight, from the book, we shall be reflecting on these topics. Okay, Saint Joseph, noble offspring of David, light of patriarchs, spouse of the Mother of God, chaste guardian of the Virgin, foster father of the Son of God, zealous defender of Christ, and head of the Holy Family. If you were able to look at the outline of the consecration to Saint Joseph in the book of Father Calloway, we can actually categorize the topics into three. Okay, the titles of Saint Joseph, the virtues of Saint Joseph, and the roles of Saint Joseph. So these topics cover the titles of Saint Joseph. So you see so much to cover for an hour. And we will try to deepen on these topics for the time given to us tonight. Okay, so the objective of our reflection, the objective of our activity tonight is first to deepen Father Calloway's presentation in his book. Well, Father Calloway's book is in itself complete, and it is in fact beautiful. But, to add something more is not bad at all. Later, you shall know the meaning of the name Joseph. Actually, it means literally, may God increase. So, in the life, in the person, in the identity of Saint Joseph, there is always the concept of more, okay, increase. So it's not bad at all. So we will deepen Father Calloway's presentation and develop our own insights and reflections on the topics mentioned and to discover its relevance in our life. Okay? So we go to our first topic, Saint Joseph. In the Bible, actually there are two Josephs. Okay, one in the Old Testament and another is in the New Testament. Okay, the Old Testament Joseph is the son of Jacob. The New Testament Joseph, the same Joseph that we are, celebrating this year in the the universal church, the husband of Mary, the foster father of Jesus. But even if they are thousands of years apart, there are connections between the two of them. They are connected in many ways. Okay, the name Joseph, has two meanings. Actually, I hinted the one meaning of the name Joseph a while ago. If we go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 30, we shall know the two meanings of the name Joseph. Of course, here, what is referred to, or who is referred to, is the Joseph of the Old Testament. But as I said, they are connected in many ways. Later we shall know. In Genesis chapter 30, verse 22 to 24, there it is written. So the context of this is Jacob finally had a son with the love of his life, Rachel. Because if you know the story, Jacob fell in love with Rachel, but it so happened that Rachel was a younger sister to Leah. So their custom, the Jewish custom, provides that the elder sister should marry first. So since Leah was not married yet, Jacob had to take Leah as his wife. Only after some time did the father gave Rachel to Jacob in marriage. But Rachel, for a long time, was barren. She could not bear children to Jacob until one day her prayers was heard by God, and she bore a son to Jacob, and she named it Joseph. This is what is written in Genesis 30, which narrates the story. Then God remembered Rachel. God listened to her and made her fruitful. She conceived and bore a son, and she said, God has removed my disgrace. She named him Joseph, saying, may the Lord add another son for me. Okay, take note of the underlined sentences. God has removed my disgrace. An utterance by Rachel upon conceiving and giving birth to Joseph. And another, may the Lord add another son for me. Okay. The name Joseph in Hebrew is Yosef. Shares the same root. Yosef shares the same root as Hasap. Okay. Now, what is this Yosef and Hasap? Okay. Yosef literally means, may he add. Okay. Well, the Jews, they are very particular in giving names to their children. Since they are the chosen people of God, when they give names to their children, there is always a mention about a thing or something about God. So the he here, may he add, it refers to God. Okay? So they do not just give names to their children. There is always a meaning. And the meaning of the names would be the life program or the mission of the one to whom the name is given. Okay. Now, Joseph means may he add. Okay. That's what Rachel said in Genesis 30, if you remember. May the Lord add another son for me. That is the very reason why Rachel named him Joseph. Because Joseph, which is the Hebrew equivalent of Joseph, means may he add. Now, as I said, Joseph shares the same root as the Hebrew word hasap. And hasap literally means he has removed. You see, in reference to what Rachel said in Genesis 30, God has removed my disgrace, because for a long time, Rachel was barren. Okay, so you see the significance of the name Joseph to the history of having conceived Joseph and having given birth to Joseph, okay, of the Old Testament. So Joseph can be said, or Saint Joseph, which who shares the same name as the Joseph of the Old Testament, can be, as Father Calloway mentioned in his book, the increaser. We can regard Saint Joseph as the increaser. Saint Joseph has the power to increase the presence of God in your life, Father Calloway said, and take you to greater heights in the spiritual life. So the consecration to Saint Joseph that we are doing is actually a pattern after the consecration to Mary by Saint Louis de Montfort. That's why it's 33 days, because the consecration to Mary in the book of Saint Louis de Montfort consists of 33 days of reflections and prayers. So it is patterned after that. That is the reason why we have 33 days. And you know, the number 33 is in reference to the age of Jesus when he died on the cross. So you see, Saint Joseph, who shares the same name with the Joseph of the Old Testament, whose name means may he add, may he increase, is also an increaser. Father Calloway in his book argued that the grace that we receive through Mary is big enough. It's huge. Marami na po tayong natanggap na grasya through Mary. But as I said, it is not bad to add more. And through the intercession of Joseph, our grace, or the grace that we receive from God through Mary, can be, increased. Because his name, which literally means may he add, has something to tell about that. Okay? So you see, these two meanings of the name Joseph, which we learn from the Joseph of the Old Testament, is also applicable to Joseph of the New Testament, to Saint Joseph. So we have learned already the literal meaning, the increaser. So what about Hasa, which literally means he has taken away, in reference to the remark of Rachel that God has taken away her disgrace for not having, children for a long time. Saint Joseph also, looking at the second meaning of the name Joseph from the root hasap, has removed the disgrace upon humanity caused by Adam. Okay, in what way? Father Calloway, in his book, called Saint Joseph the new Adam. Right? Of course, calling Saint Joseph Adam does not, there is a disclaimer here, notwithstanding Christ as the new Adam, okay, without prejudice to the theological application of the term new Adam to Christ or to Jesus. But when Father Calloway said that Saint Joseph is the new Adam, it is because Saint Joseph has removed the disgrace upon humanity caused by Adam. If we go back to the letter of Paul to the Romans, there Saint Paul is telling the people of Rome that just as sin and death entered humanity through Adam, it was through Christ, okay, that grace and righteousness entered again the history of humanity. And we know the important role that Saint Joseph played in the mission of Christ, right? So we can say without Saint Joseph in the picture, Christ would not have, fulfilled his mission. So we can also say, of course, that Saint Joseph also was able to remove the disgrace upon humanity caused by Adam, because Saint Joseph shared in the very mission of Christ, who in theology is the new Adam, who was able to bring back the grace and righteousness to humanity, which were lost when Adam, the first human being, sinned against God. So you see the connection between the Joseph of the Old Testament and Saint Joseph of the New Testament. Now we go to the second topic, noble offspring of David. Now, we know that Saint Joseph is from the line of King David. Okay, so if we try to go back to the Gospel of St. Matthew chapter 1, which narrates the genealogy of Jesus, we can trace the lineage of Saint Joseph from the lineage of King David. Okay, we can trace it all the way to King David. And the proof is the genealogy in the Gospel of Matthew and Luke. So maybe you are just familiar with the genealogy in the Gospel of Matthew. There is another genealogy in the Gospel of Luke. The difference is that in the Gospel of Matthew, we trace from the ancestor, from Abraham. While in Luke traced the genealogy of Jesus from Jesus going down to Adam. So that's the difference. But we have the two genealogies in the Bible, one in the Gospel of Matthew and one in Luke, which both support the claim that Saint Joseph comes from the line of King David. Now, we have this question: why highlight David? Why say noble offspring of David? Why give this title to Saint Joseph? Okay, the answer to that is because there is a prophecy. Okay, a prophecy about the Messiah. If we go back to the second book of Samuel, it is written there the following: the Lord spoke to David through the prophet Nathan. When your days have been completed and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring after you, sprung from your loins, and I will establish his kingdom. He it is who shall build a house for my name, and I will establish his royal throne forever. So this is a prophecy about the coming Messiah. And this prophecy was delivered through the prophet Nathan to David. Okay. Another, in the book of the prophet Jeremiah, it is written, see, days are coming. Okay. When I will raise up a righteous branch of David. As king, he shall reign and govern wisely. He shall do what is just and right in the land. So again, another reference to King David. So this prophecies about the Messiah speaks that the Messiah would come from the line of David. So we know Saint Joseph's role is to, provide the line, the direct line to Jesus, going to David. So that's why we have this title of Saint Joseph, noble offspring of David. Another insight that we can get from this, since there is the mention of the word noble, is that Saint Joseph is noble. Okay, Saint Joseph belongs to nobility. Okay, so when we talk about nobility, noble, what comes to our mind is that the concept of a king. So Saint Joseph is also kingly, noble. Well, this is not a far-fetched idea, although Saint Joseph, we know, was poor. He lived a simple life in a small town in Nazareth. But even though Saint Joseph, because of his direct connection to King David, can also be a kingly or noble. Besides, we have this antiphon in our prayers. He made him the Lord, okay, of his household and prince over all his possessions. So we have these terms attributed to Saint Joseph in this antiphon, Lord and Prince, which belongs to the same semantic web of meaning with nobility and a king. So Saint Joseph is also noble and kingly. All right. Now we jump to the third topic, light of patriarchs. So when we talk about patriarch, it has something to do with the concept of a father. Because patriarch and father share the same Latin root, okay, Latin etymology. Both words came from the Latin word pater, patris, or patris, okay, which means father. So when we talk about patriarch, we are given that concept of father. In the Bible, several personalities are, regarded as patriarchs. Okay. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. So they are patriarchs. If we try to go back to Exodus 3, verse 16, the encounter of Moses with Yahweh. When Moses asked, if the Pharaoh would ask me, how would I introduce you to him? And, Yahweh said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Okay, so there is the mention from God that your father is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So these are patriarchs. Okay, Adam, incidentally, can also be referred as patriarch, because when we say patriarch, it means head or origin of a generation. So Abraham is head of a generation, the people of God. So Isaac, being the direct descendant of Abraham, and also Jacob, can also be called patriarchs. And also Adam, because Adam is the father of humanity. All right. Now, Saint Joseph is light of patriarchs. First, Saint Joseph is a patriarch because there is a concept of fatherhood in him. Okay, he's the father, the legal father of Jesus, and there is the concept of what? Of the origin or being a leader of a family. Okay, because Saint Joseph is the head of the Holy Family. Okay. Another insight that we can get from this is that, according to Father Calloway, Saint Joseph is our father also. We as a church, he is our spiritual father. So we see the concept of patriarch in Saint Joseph. It is not only applicable to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but also to Saint Joseph, being a father himself and, an origin, that might use that term, of a generation. Because in Jesus, all right, in Jesus or from Jesus would emerge a new people, okay, the redeemed people of God, a new generation. We are referring to the church. We are Christians. So the direct, shall we say, father or origin of that is Saint Joseph, being the legal father of Jesus. Now, Saint Joseph is not only patriarch. It is said in his title, he is light of patriarchs. So Saint Joseph is not only patriarch, he is light. When we talk about light, we mean guide, right? Because that is the use, okay? The purpose of light, to guide us, right? At night, when we go on our way, for example, we need the aid of light in order to see the way we are taking. Okay, during the time when GPS has not been invented, sailors, those who travel would try to look at the sky and try to observe the lights of the sky at During the day, they look at the sun so that they know their orientation. They know where is the east, where is the west by looking at the sun, the light during the day. At night, travelers would look at the sky again and observe the stars, okay, the lights of the stars in order to guide in their journey. So if light serves as a guide and Saint Joseph is light of patriarchs, then Saint Joseph is not only playing the role of a father, okay, he is also a light, a guide to those who play the role of fathers, because Saint Joseph is light of patriarchs. Incidentally, when Pope Francis declared this year as Year of Saint Joseph, he issued an apostolic letter. The title of his apostolic letter is Patris Corde. And he said towards the end of that apostolic letter that the purpose for writing this apostolic letter is, actually it's threefold. First is to increase our love for this great Saint Joseph, okay? To implore his intercession. And the third one is to imitate Saint Joseph in his zeal and in his virtues. So Saint Joseph can be a guide in as much as Saint Joseph played the role of a father to Jesus. And those who are attending our consecration program are all, I think, are all fathers except the seminarians and the priests. We can see in Saint Joseph a guide in our exercise of our own fatherhood. Well, the priests are also fathers in our own respect. The seminarians, time will come, they will be fathers also, just like us. So we can see in Saint Joseph someone who can guide in our exercise of this role. Now we jump to the next topic, spouse of the Mother of God. So the spouse, the Mother of God referred to here is none other than trying to study that story, okay, trying to dig deeper into that story. We can, discover that Saint Joseph did not doubt Mary, because in the exegesis or study of that particular story in the Bible, in the Gospel, about Saint Joseph's decision-making, whether to take Mary in marriage or not, there are three theories about that actually. So one theory states that Saint Joseph really wanted to separate from Mary. But there is another theory that says Saint Joseph knew that Mary could not, do this, meaning Mary could not commit adultery. Mary could not cheat on Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph knew that, according to that theory. And the reason why Saint Joseph was planning to divorce Mary secretly is because Saint Joseph knew that the nature of the pregnancy of Mary is divine. And Saint Joseph felt that he is unworthy to be part of this great plan of God. So if we try to look at the story this way, we see that the trust of Saint Joseph never, was diminished. It was never lost. Saint Joseph trusted Mary, and we know that Saint Joseph trusted Mary because according to that theory, Saint Joseph even trusted Mary, even if there is a obvious evidence that Mary probably committed adultery because she was found to be pregnant. So we know that Saint Joseph trusted his wife, Mary, because even there is a probable cause or evidence pointing to Mary's adultery, Joseph still, tried to trust Mary and say Mary could not do that. So Saint Joseph trusted his wife. Second, Saint Joseph protected his wife. By taking Mary as his wife, of course, Saint Joseph was able to spare the life of Mary. Because in the Jewish law, when a woman is found guilty of adultery, the punishment is death. Okay? So by taking Mary as his wife, even if Saint Joseph is not the biological father of the baby in the womb of Mary, Saint Joseph, stood as a would-be father to the child in the womb of Mary. It's like he claimed his fatherhood to the child in the womb of Mary. So Saint Joseph in that way protected his wife. Where else? In the journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem for the census, it was a long journey, about 100 kilometers. And we know during that time, to journey across the desert is perilous. So Saint Joseph, Mary would not have reached Bethlehem safely if not Saint Joseph, if not with Saint Joseph's protection. Of course, we know Saint Joseph protected his wife Mary, and we are always given a picture about the journey from Bethlehem to from Nazareth to Bethlehem. A picture that depicts Mary riding the donkey and Saint Joseph on his foot beside his wife Mary. So you see, there is only one donkey, and Saint Joseph was walking while leading the donkey on which Mary was. Okay, and I remember that film, The Nativity. I know some of you was able to see the movie, watch the movie. It was about the birth of Jesus Christ. And there is one scene in that movie that I like very much. The scene when Saint Joseph was on the journey with his wife Mary riding on a donkey going to Bethlehem. And there was a stopover. They stopped over in the middle of the desert to spend the night. So they had their dinner, their supper. Okay, Saint Joseph took a piece of bread from their sack, divided the bread into two, gave the half to Mary, and the other half, Saint Joseph did not yet consume it. What he did was he divided again that half into another half. So that makes 2/4 of the bread. So what Saint Joseph did, okay, while Mary was not looking, was to give the quarter of that bread to the donkey. So you see, looking at the picture, between Mary and Joseph, Saint Joseph is more tired, right, than Mary, because Saint Joseph is walking on foot. He's walking while Mary is on the donkey. So if we are talking about the energy that was lost, practically Saint Joseph needed more energy than Mary. So the bigger portion of the food to replenish their energy should go to Saint Joseph, but Saint Joseph did not resort to that. In fact, what he did was to give a portion of the bread to the donkey. Okay, perhaps to keep the donkey going, to keep the donkey, strong to carry Mary. And we can see there also Saint Joseph's way of protecting his wife. Also, when the angel appeared to him in a dream, telling Saint Joseph that the life of the child and the mother was in danger, that Saint Joseph had to, bring the child and the mother to Egypt at the middle of the night, that's another way, another instance of Saint Joseph protecting his wife. Another reason why Saint Joseph is a model husband is because he respected his wife. Respected, spiritually, because Saint Joseph did not have any sexual relation with his wife. We know that because the gospel said that. When the angel of the Lord deserted Saint Joseph did as the angel told him. That's according to the Gospel of Matthew. And there was a mention by the evangelist that Saint Joseph did not have any relation with his wife until the child is born. So Saint Joseph did not have any relation with Mary before Jesus was born. We know that. Okay, because Mary got pregnant even before Saint Joseph took Mary to his house or to his home. And Saint Joseph also did not have any relation with Mary after giving birth to Jesus, since Mary remained to be perpetually a virgin. Okay, and finally, the reason, he was not self-centered, right? The story I told you, that particular scene in the film, The Nativity, would tell so much about Saint Joseph not being self-centered. And another thing, of course, when Saint Joseph planned of marrying the Blessed Mother, of course, he planned about the life that he would have with Mary. Perhaps a simple life in Nazareth. And perhaps he also dreamed and wished to have many children, as the Jews would, consider children as blessing from God. So perhaps we can picture out Saint Joseph planning a simple life in Nazareth with Mary, having many children. This was the plan of Saint Joseph. But because of the role that Mary would play in the history of salvation, Saint Joseph set aside these personal plans. He could not have a simple life anymore in Nazareth. Okay? Because when Jesus would come, their life would be very complicated already. It would not be a simple life in Nazareth, but a complicated life. Imagine at Bethlehem. They haven't returned to Bethlehem to Nazareth yet. In Bethlehem, the angel appeared to Joseph and said, the life of the baby and the mother is in danger. You see how complicated the life was? Saint Joseph, when Jesus was 12 years old, Jesus got lost in the temple, only to find out that he was safe among the doctors in the temple. So they had to go back to the temple because of Jesus. How complicated the life was. And, of course, even the very life of Jesus itself was complicated. Even if Saint Joseph was presumed dead already, even before the beginning of public ministry of Jesus. But we see how Saint Joseph was not self-centered. He set aside his own plan for the sake of the mission of his wife, Mary. So I think these reasons, trust, protection, respect, and not being self-centered, are the qualities of a husband that we need today. Okay, so we have all men here. This is an all-men group. And many of us here are married. And, the secret of a successful marriage, we can also find in the life of Saint Joseph as a husband. He trusted his wife, he protected his wife, he respected his wife, and he was not self-centered. Let us try to, practice this with our wife and see the difference, right? So we see a model of a husband in Saint Joseph. Now we jump to the next topic, chaste guardian of the Virgin. So we said Saint Joseph is a model husband because he respected his wife. That's one reason why Saint Joseph is an epitome of a husband. Now, by doing so, by respecting his wife Mary, not having sexual relation with Mary before giving birth to Jesus and even after giving birth to Jesus, Saint Joseph did not only preserve the virginity of Mary, he also preserved his chastity, right? Not having relation with his wife preserved not only the virginity of his wife, of the Blessed Mother, but also his chastity. That's why Saint Joseph is chaste, right? Uh, well, there are stories in extra-biblical accounts that tell or that say Saint Joseph, when he took Mary to be his wife, was a widower. But you know, it is a story in an extra biblical account, meaning it is a story that did not belong to the scripture. Therefore, we can question the authenticity of the story. Because if we try to accept that story as true, we cannot say Saint Joseph is chaste, right? Saint Joseph is virgin because he had, you know, a prior marriage, right? But since that story did not make it to the scriptures, we can say that Saint Joseph did not have what? A former family. Okay, so it's a far-fetched idea that Saint Joseph was a widower when he took Mary as his wife. So we know Saint Joseph is chaste. Now, let's talk about chastity. When we consult our catechism, chastity is a form of the virtue of temperance. So there is the concept of temperance here, pagtitimpi, by which one is able to control by right reason the desires for sensual pleasure. So that is chastity defined in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Father Calloway, in his book, defined chastity this way: the virtue that prevents us from being slaves to our passions and acting like irrational animals. So that is chastity. And we see that in Saint Joseph. There is temperance in Saint Joseph. And it's not a far-fetched idea that Saint Joseph has temperance. With the tenderness of Saint Joseph, it is not far it's not a far-fetched idea that Saint Joseph is also chaste, has also temperance. Now, Saint Joseph's chastity, okay, if we want to prove Saint Joseph's chastity, we just need to go or to look at the dogma of Mary's perpetual virginity, because Saint Joseph's chastity is derived from Mary's perpetual virginity. It logically derives from that dogma of Mary's perpetual virginity. Saint Joseph and Mary did not have intimate relation before Jesus was conceived. And Saint Joseph, as attested by the Gospel of Matthew, did not have relation or decided not to have the same relation with Mary even after taking her home to his as wife. There is one biblical scholar and agiosophologist, meaning someone who studied on Saint Joseph, a priest from the Oblates of Saint Joseph. His name is Larry Toshti. According to Father Larry Toshti, his Saint Joseph's decision is presumed to be out of respect for the unique mystery of virginal conception and divine incarnation. This is what I'm talking about. That trust that Saint Joseph had with his wife Mary. Saint Joseph respected the unique mystery that covering the conception of Mary to Jesus. That's why Saint Joseph did not or decided not to have any relation with Mary even after Mary gave birth to Jesus. So we can see here that since Mary's virginity is part of God's plan, the fact that Mary's virginity is a dogma, so it is God's will that Mary would remain a virgin even after conceiving and giving birth to Jesus. It follows that if Saint Joseph decided to respect this plan of God, we see here Saint Joseph has a high regard for the will of God. So we can say also that Saint Joseph's chastity, his decision to remain chaste, not to have relation with his wife Mary, is the manifestation of his submission to the will of God. Okay. Not only is Saint Joseph obedient because he followed the advice of the angel as provided in the Gospel of Matthew, but also because he cooperated in the will of God for Mary to remain a virgin forever. Okay, so that those are the insights we can get from Saint Joseph's chastity. Now we jump to the next topic: foster father of the Son of God. Okay, so there is a mention of the word foster. Why use the word foster? In fact, if we survey the Bible, there is no mention or reference to Saint Joseph being foster, adopted father of Jesus. No. This was added later on. It was not, the word foster in reference to the role of Saint Joseph to Jesus is not found in the Bible. Okay. But it was used by the church in order to highlight the divinity of Christ. Okay. Because Jesus is not actually the son of Joseph. We know that. He's not the biological father. He's only, if we are thinking in the Jewish way, Saint Joseph only played the role of a legal father. Well, it is actually equivalent to a real father in the mind of the Jews. But he is not the biological father we know. Saint Joseph, we know, is actually the son of God. So by using the word foster, we highlight the divinity of Christ. So it's like apologetical, the reason for using the term foster, meaning in defense of the faith. Why highlight the divinity of Christ in that way? When we go back to the Gospel of Luke chapter 2, the story of the loss and the finding of Jesus in the temple, when his parents saw Jesus, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father," okay, this is Mary speaking, "your father," so Mary was referring to Saint Joseph, "your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And he said to them, Jesus said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" Some biblical scholars say that the mention of my Father's house here is in reference to the temple, which is the abode of God. Okay, God, the Father. So you see, we see here two fathers. We know, even in Jesus' mind as a young 12-year-old boy, he knew that Saint Joseph is not actually his father. By saying, "I must be in my Father's house." Okay? But, the use of the word foster father in reference to Saint Joseph's role to Jesus, to me, it is rather degrading to Saint Joseph. Because, Saint Joseph really played the role of a true father to Jesus. Not only did Saint Joseph become the legal father of Jesus in the mind of the Jews during his time, Saint Joseph really played the role of a true father to Jesus. The apostolic letter that I mentioned earlier that Pope Francis issued upon the declaration or proclamation of this year as Year of Saint Joseph was a reflection on Saint Joseph as a father. That's why the title of the apostolic letter is Patris Corde. The direct translation of that is, because it's Latin, is with a father's heart. Pope Francis was not afraid. He was very bold to call Saint Joseph Father of Jesus. No qualification, no foster father. Okay. The direct predecessor of this apostolic letter by Pope Francis, okay, the last document about Saint Joseph issued by a pope about Saint Joseph before Patris Corde was one written by John Paul II in 1989. And the title of that apostolic exhortation is Redemptoris Custos, the translation of which is Guardian of the Redeemer. So John Paul II in 1989, in that papal document, referred to Saint Joseph as guardian of the Redeemer. There is also a mention there about Saint Joseph being the foster father of Jesus. Well, theologically speaking, that is correct. Saint Joseph was not the real father of Jesus, only a guardian, right? Only a custodian, only a foster father. But Pope Francis was bold enough to call Saint Joseph Father of Jesus without any qualification. No foster, no father as a guardian whatsoever. Because Saint Joseph really played the role of a true father to Jesus. Now, if we try to examine this title, Foster Father of the Son of God, as I said, the word foster cannot be found in the Bible. And when we try to revert, okay, to the original Latin text of the litany, what was provided by the Vatican was Filii Dei Nutritiae. Literally means it's nourishing, okay, someone who nourishes the Son of God. Okay, someone who nourishes the Son of God. You see the translation, it is far from the literal. Okay, the original Latin says, Filii Dei Nutritiae. Someone who nourishes the Son of God. There was no mention about being a father, being a foster father, much less. See, when we say nutritiae, it means nourishing. Okay, someone who provides nourishment. Because that literally was the role of Saint Joseph to Jesus. He provided nourishment to Jesus. Nourishment of all forms. Okay, material nourishment. He provided for Mary and Jesus. He worked so that he can, feed Mary and Jesus. And Saint Joseph also provided spiritual nourishment to Jesus. Because the fathers in the Jewish culture teach their sons. So it is the father who teaches the son. So the reason why Jesus was that bright at 12 years old, he could, talk about many things about God in front of the doctors or the sages, was because Saint Joseph was able to educate Jesus, was able to provide mental, okay, and spiritual nourishment to Jesus. Okay? So in this sense, the fatherhood of Saint Joseph extends even to us, not only to Jesus. As we call him, in the book of Father Calloway, our spiritual father. So as our father, Saint Joseph also gives us nourishment. Spiritual nourishment, to be exact. Spiritual nourishment of many sorts. You see, we are now learning that we can consider Saint Joseph as our role model in the many roles that we play in our community, in the society, in our family. Right? So by this, being an example, Saint Joseph is providing us with spiritual nourishment that we need to become good Christians. So Saint Joseph is true to his title, nourishing, right? Someone who nourishes. Okay. Now we jump to the next topic, zealous defender of Christ. Other translations of this title of Saint Joseph are watchful defender of Christ. There is another translation that says diligent defender of Christ. Okay, so these are other translations. But they mean the same, zealous, right? So you are full of energy when you are zealous. Watchful, okay? When you are watchful, you are, of course, full of energy also. You are awake, right? You are diligent. You are always in action. But if Saint Joseph is zealous, watchful, or diligent defender of Christ, why is he, as the background picture depicts, sleeping? We have this image of Saint Joseph who is sleeping, the sleeping Saint Joseph, which was popularized by Pope Francis when he, had his apostolic visit to the Philippines, right? And after that visit, the image of the sleeping Saint Joseph was, the spread all over the country. So Saint Joseph is sleeping, and yet he is zealous, watchful, diligent. How do we reconcile these two ideas? Okay. We know he is a defender of Christ. Okay, he defended Christ from many dangers, from his childhood, right? When the life of Jesus was in danger because of Herod, Saint Joseph defended Jesus, right? So Saint Joseph is a defender, but watchful, reconciling it with his being a sleeping Saint Joseph. How do we reconcile that? Now, this is how we reconcile that. Saint Joseph is pictured as sleeping in order to highlight or to give us the idea of his dream, because Saint Joseph's dream has a very important implication to the story or the entire history of salvation, the dream of Saint Joseph. Because it is in his dream, as we can read from the Gospels, the Gospel of Matthew to be exact, that the angel of the Lord laid down the plan of God, right? The angel told Joseph in the dream, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. The angel even told Joseph the name of the child that Saint Joseph must give, okay, Jesus. And the reason for giving that name, because Jesus will be saving the humanity. Okay? So Saint Joseph's dream is very important in the development of the theology about Saint Joseph. Okay, but what about the dream of Saint Joseph? Was he really, because when we talk about dream, someone dreams only when he or she is asleep, right? So when we talk about Saint Joseph's dream, what comes to our mind is someone who is sleeping, right? We can only dream when we are asleep, right? Can we dream when we are awake? Daydreaming. But we can only dream when we are asleep. So that's why there is sleeping Saint Joseph in order to highlight Saint Joseph's dream. But biblical scholars said that it should not be interpreted just because there was a mention that an angel appeared in his dream. It should not be interpreted literally that Saint Joseph fell asleep, right? That Saint Joseph slept over his problem. Remember, he's having a problem. He was undergoing a crisis. It doesn't mean that Saint Joseph slept over his crisis. Okay? Sabi ng biblical scholars, Saint Joseph's dream, the mention of Saint Joseph's dream, was actually a divine vision as a result of a deep prayer. So according to biblical scholars, Saint Joseph was in the depth of his prayer. That in his prayer, he saw a vision, an angel telling him what to do. So what insight do we get from this? If biblical scholars is interpreting that story as this, then we can say that Saint Joseph, okay, in his crisis, would consult God in prayer. He would not right away decide, but pray, right? Consult God, call on God, okay? And we know that it was deep prayer, according to the biblical scholars, because Saint Joseph saw a vision. The answer to his prayer was immediate. Okay, so it's like what happens to mystics when they pray. Okay? They right away see visions. So what happened to Saint Joseph is the same according to biblical scholars. In his prayer, he saw a vision of an angel telling him what to do. So that consists Saint Joseph's zealousness. He is watchful, he is zealous, full of action, and his action, his strength, right, his energy comes from God. Okay, because, you know, our energy to go on would always come from God. Our energy to face our problems, because problems are not only to be considered actual problems, they are sometimes spiritual problems. And what kind of strength do we need when we face such problems? Isn't it a strength that comes from God? So Saint Joseph was able to become zealous, someone full of energy to accomplish his mission because he consults God in prayer. Okay, so that's how Saint Joseph became zealous defender of Christ. So we too, just like Saint Joseph, are called to be defenders of Christ. Okay. Well, not maybe the way Saint Joseph did it actually, right? Like bringing the child Jesus to Egypt, providing for the child Jesus. No, not anymore. Because today, Christ is, we need Christ because inasmuch as Saint Joseph was under attack by Herod, today today Christ is also under attack. Okay, from all sides actually, in so many ways. The doctrines of Christ are under attack. His church, our church, is under attack, right? His ministers, those who serve in the church, we are all under attack. Okay. His brothers and sisters, those who are weak, defenseless, they are under attack. Okay. Those whom we consider as the least, the last, and the lost, they are under attack. So we are called to be like Saint Joseph, defender of Christ, or defenders of those who in any way are connected to Christ. So how do we do it? How do we become zealous defender of Christ? Wala rin pong ibang tutulong sa atin kundi ang Diyos. Right? That's why the church always asks us to pray. Okay? Pray for the church. Pray for the ministers of the church. Pray for the priests. Okay? Sa bagay na ito, malaki na po yung ambag sa ating pagtatanggol sa kapakanan ni Kristo. Okay? When we get closer to God, kapag lumapit tayo sa Diyos in our prayer. So that's how we become a zealous defender of Christ, just like Saint Joseph. And finally, Saint Joseph as head of the Holy Family. Okay? First, we need to remember that Jesus entered the institution of a family. But we know God is powerful. He can do whatever everything is possible for God. If God wills that He entered humanity, if God willed that He become man, He could have done that at the flick of the finger, snap of the finger. But God did not decide to do that, but He decided to enter the institution of the family. So this only tells us that the family is a divine institution, that God wills that family exists. Okay? Now, this makes Saint Joseph so important today. Okay? About the institution of the family. Ito yung mahalaga sa role ni Saint Joseph sa family. Saint Joseph became the head of the Holy Family. And we know the family is a divine institution. So alam natin, being head of a divine institution, a family, Saint Joseph has a big role to play in the institution of the family that we have right now. Okay? Those who are reading the book of Father Calloway, there he mentioned about a vision by Sister Lucia dos Santos, one of the visionaries of Fatima. So the story was that there is a certain Bishop Carlo Cafara, when he was made cardinal by Pope John Paul II, he was commissioned to put up a pontifical institution or institute on family and marriage. Right? Now, Father Carlo Cafara, perhaps he is an acquaintance to Sister Lucia dos Santos. So, Cardinal Cafara wrote a letter to Sister Lucia asking for some advice because the Pope ordered him to put up this pontifical institute on family and marriage. And what Sister Lucia wrote in a letter which she sent to Cardinal Cafara was actually a prophecy, right? A warning. And the warning goes like this: the final battle between the Lord and the kingdom of Satan will be over family and marriage. So that was what Sister Lucia wrote in her letter to Cardinal Cafara. The final battle between the Lord and the kingdom of Satan will be over family and marriage. And you know what? This final battle has begun because the family and marriage has been attacked from all sides already. Diba? There are so many dangers to marriage and family life nowadays. At parang ang natatalo ang institution ng family. What are these dangers that I am talking about? First, marriage. What was the marriage that God instituted? Isn't it? It's a marriage between man and a woman, right? So the concept and the advocacy towards same-sex marriage is a direct affront to the institution of marriage which God has provided. So it's an attack to marriage, the ploy of Satan. To family. Ano itong mga dangers to family? Divorce. Diba? Sa marriage, it's not only sa marriage lang, pati sa family. Kapag we, advocate divorce, paghihiwalayin mo yung pinagsama ng Diyos, diba? You break the marriage. That's the idea of divorce. Ano pa? Abortion. Diba? Abortion is a direct affront to family. Kailan po ba matatawag na pamilya ang mga tao? Diba? When a man marries a woman, hindi pa sila pamilya. They are just husband and wife. They will be called a family only when their offspring comes. Ngayon, kung papatayin mo yung offspring, doon pa lang sa sinapupunan through abortion. Diba? Hindi ka na nakarating doon sa estado ng family. So you have killed the family even before it existed. Ito yung mga dangers to the family. So the final battle is over family and marriage. And since these things are happening now, that final battle has begun. And if Saint Joseph played the role of head of that divine institution family, then all the more that we need Saint Joseph now. Father Calloway said in his book, we need Saint Joseph now in this battle over family and marriage. Because inasmuch as Saint Joseph protected the Holy Family, became what? The head of the Holy Family, then he can also head over our families and marriage, so that Satan would not, snatch us away from these divine institutions. So that's the role of Saint Joseph now. He is not only head of the Holy Family, we can say Saint Joseph can also be head of our respective families. We can turn to Saint Joseph, especially when we encounter problems in our families, in our marriage, in our married life. Pray to Saint Joseph. He did everything to preserve the family, the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, with him. So if Saint Joseph was able to do that, then Saint Joseph can also do the same to our own families and our own married life. Now, there is apparent irony here. Saint Joseph is head of the family, even if he is the lowest in rank in the Holy Family, right? So what you have there is Jesus, the Son of God, and Mary, the Immaculate Conception, someone who was given a singular grace. So Saint Joseph was the lowest in rank in the Holy Family, and yet he was made head of this family. You see, there is an important implication and insight of this on leadership, right? So just because you are the most intelligent in the group, the most educated in the group, the richest in the group, okay, the best in all aspects in the group, you're the only one who has the capacity to lead. Or let us, try to reverse it. Just because you don't have these qualities, perhaps someone in the group is more intelligent than you are, richer than you are, more capable than you are, you don't have the capacity to lead. No. See, Saint Joseph was the lowest in rank in the Holy Family, and yet he was made head of the Holy Family, which he accepted. The mission of being the head, he accepted. So this is a lesson on leadership, especially sa ating parokya, di po ba? When the parish priest, Father Lambert, would, approach us and said, "Brother, can you head this particular organization in the church?" Okay naman, di ba? You doubt your capacity. "Father, why me? Someone is better than I am. Pwede po bang si brother so-and-so na lang because he is better than I am, more intelligent than I am, more experienced than I am, richer than I am." You see, this is a lesson on leadership. When God approaches us and asks us to lead a group, God sees something in us, right? That, our apparent qualities do not show, or others' apparent good qualities seem to contradict our accepting of that role or mission. Okay? Kaya pag nilapitan kayo, or the reason why, for example, the parish priest, Father Lambert, would approach you is because Father Lambert sees something in you. Okay? After all, by virtue of our baptism, we are all capable of leading. Because when we were baptized, we share in Christ's offices, the kingly office, the prophetic office and the priestly office, which entail leadership. Okay, so tonight we have reflected on the topics that speak about the titles of Saint Joseph. Okay, so that ends my reflection. Thank you.